you.
I know, thank you.
The meeting flash show, I really appreciate it.
Welcome back. We are to the Planning Commission meeting of July 15th, and we are continuing our discussion on the community plan element. And Peter, do you want to go through all these at the end, or you want to, given
I
us?
just realized I left my copy on my desk.
Oh, you want to use mine?
Sure.
You want to do that first, or do you want to keep going, or how would you like to?
Why don't we do first?
Okay, let's do it.
Or everybody forgets what it is.
Okay.
So, and then there's also a copy of the
I'll look
revised
up. I'll steal up.
description
Yeah.
here of the Historic Community Organization that I passed out to the Planning Commission. So we'll start with this sheet here, and it was the issue about the lack of public water or sewer in the historic community designation. So I added this one sentence to the description, which I hope will clarify that as long as the site can support the proposed development through, by well and septic capability, that public water and sewer are not required, but we are encouraging that type of
Very nice.
extension services.
Good job.
So hopefully that covers that issue. In addition to the text changes that we discussed this morning, Mr. Wooster pointed out some grammatical errors. And so I've included most of those in this revised package. Most of them are shown in underline and strikeout. And I think we'll just go down to the first one is on the top of page 2, end of the first paragraph. I added 2 sentences that describe the relationship between Glencoe and Railroad Flat and why their language is identical. Take a look at that, and if you're comfortable with that language, we can move on.
Well, on that sentence, it says the community plans for Glencoe and Railroad Flat was,
Oh, we're
should be were initially prepared.
Or plan, there was. I'll make the correction.
That was a test. You passed. And then we struck that last sentence of the third paragraph, changed valleys to canyons. I realize I missed the same change on Railroad Flat. I'll go back and do that. On the bottom of page 3 is the statement about town center and its relationship to the community area. The same language was added with swapping Mountain Ranch for Glencoe on bottom of page 7. We made the amendments to the Mountain Ranch policies we discussed, and then lighting and noise. I just referenced the noise element policies under lighting and the land use element policies that, or under noise, and the land use policies that discuss lighting rather than the language that was there before. And then on the top of page 11, we have the statement about the town center again. And I think that's pretty much it. So I think we're at San Andreas.
Okay. The other, did you have a chance to look at the Rancho map?
Yes,
Yes.
he did.
There were 2 small pieces of property that are owned by the community association, and so we'll make that map change.
Okay, so
The other question on mapping was the ownership of the park in
Right.
Railroad Flat, in Mountain Ranch.
Mountain Ranch.
And there are two parcels, I'll pass this around. The larger piece where the ball fields are owned by the county, and the smaller piece is owned by the fire district.
Fire district?
Public designation is appropriate for
Okay.
those two.
So is it appropriate to demand that only public buildings exist in these two parcels? Can that community plan tell the county what they can and cannot build on that and the fire department? So I guess,
Well, it's the county's plan. So if the county says, we agree with the community, those two parcels should be reserved for public uses,
okay,
then the policy is appropriate.
okay.
If you think that it's inappropriate to have that policy,
I don't think it's inappropriate, but if in any certain time, and you have something important to say.
I looked that up for Darcy. She texted me at my desk. And that smaller parcel with the orchard, megabyte indicates it's owned by the community club.
if the community club acquired it in the last year, the GIS map may not have reflected that update.
But this is not, I didn't look on GIS, this was megabyte, which is the
yeah.
assessor's record.
Yeah, and this is GIS,
Right.
and sometimes it's
So the assessor's record should be the most
more
updated
accurate. Okay,
megabyte updates from, or GIS updates from megabyte.
okay.
But
We'll
I don't know
verify
if that
that.
matters to you, but there
Yeah,
could be.
no, that's an important point. I'll double check, I'll look into that further, and it will either be then shown as public institutional or as recreation,
Okay.
depending on the ownership.
All righty. Thank you very much for the hard work over lunch.
Yes.
So we are moving on to the San Andreas Community Plan. Commissioner comments? Hi, Jean.
I have no issues or comments.
I didn't either. Anyone else have any issues?
The only thing I would like to say with the San Andreas map is that I noticed some inconsistencies as I was reviewing other land use map requests, and I'd like to bring that map back. I need to look at some of the residential area by the school over off of Lewis Road to make sure that it's consistent with the zoning. There's a lot of area that's zoned R2. We showed it as low-density residential, and some of that may need to be changed to multifamily. There's also some area just beyond the library out here that I'd like to revisit too. So I'd like to bring the map back. There won't be a lot of changes, but the area that considering are the over by the school as well as the end of town over here.
Okay. Anyone in the public wish to address the commission on the San Andreas Community Plan?
Donna Shantz, San Andreas. I'd just like to make a couple of corrections that probably no one knows about. The location and community description, it says San Andreas Community Park and Ball Field. That new name is Alex Quinones Community.
And where is that
Park.
exactly? It's in is it in the second paragraph or?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
second paragraph where it says well-established residential areas, sort of mid-down. The San Andreas Recreation and Park District includes facilities. That is now called the Alex Quinones Community Park.
Okay.
So what was the San Andreas Recreation Ball Field is now the,
Alex Quinones Community Park.
How do you spell Quinones?
Quinones.
Thank you.
And on another location where it says the highway was widened in.
Is this what page so that we can follow
Well,
along?
I have page 3, but I don't know if that's
Oh, okay.
your
Probably
pages or not.
Is it,
It's a
still-
circulation is a significant issue in the community with the state highways also serving as a main street through San Andreas.
it says 1960s and it's apparently 1955.
1955, sad to say,
55?
55.
Where
Third
is the- where is-
paragraph down,
Thank you.
last
I
paragraph
know.
under community
Mine is a
description.
little different than
That's
yours,
okay.
so.
1955, okay.
Yeah. And Ted certainly remembers that sad moment. And I think that's it. We'd like to thank Peter for all of his hard work and dealing with all of our issues.
Thank you for your involvement, too. Anyone else? All right, so looks like we've got a couple of corrections to the text, and then Peter's going to be looking back at the map, and he'll bring that back to us.
Yeah.
So we're moving on to Sheep Ranch.
Before we begin Sheep Ranch,
Yes?
I'm recusing myself from the Sheep Ranch matter since I own interests in property that's included in that plan area. I may comment on the draft as a member of the public, but not as a member of the Planning Commission. When the deliberations start after the public comment period, I will leave the room, and I'll ask that somebody come out in the hall and fetch me when you're done.
Sure. Okay, well noted. Any comments from the commission on the Sheep Ranch? Text to the map?
I don't have any issues on that one.
Okay. Members of the public, comments on Sheep Ranch?
Good afternoon. I'm Tim Laddish from Sheep Ranch, and Commissioner Wooster is also from Sheep Ranch. I mean, at one point. I want to concur with what the West Point woman said earlier. We thank you so much for including these community plans in the general plan. They were a great effort by a whole lot of people. In Sheep Ranch, we actually had a full consensus of everybody who came to the meeting after several years of development of this community plan, and getting full consensus anywhere results in a couple of things. One is a nice warm feeling. The other thing is it's compromise. So a lot of the things that are in this plan are compromise, but it's compromise supported by the community. I also thank Peter for digging once he got the assignment that yes, these were supposed to be in the general plan. Peter has been very receptive to what the community has wanted and has worked with us in making it happen. I note that if Commissioner Wooster were up there, he would right now be saying there's town center is mentioned in the community plan for Sheep Ranch. And so I would request that the Glencoe treatment also be given to the Sheep Ranch General Plan, or Community Plan. Which really brings home the fact that what is in the map now for the Sheep Ranch Community Plan is just the town center. It is based roughly on surveys made for the Sheep Ranch town site in 1878 and 1879. And it certainly doesn't include half the people who think of themselves as being members of Sheep Ranch. And originally, the Sheep Ranch Community Plan had a very broad area, stretching out primarily out Armstrong Road, but out Frico Road a bit too. And the previous planning commissioner whittled it down basically to the Sheep Ranch Town Center. I'm not here to argue that point because the current land use restrictions that are currently proposed to be applied to this area, broad area around Sheep Ranch, are pretty much exactly what we were asking for that area, and that was the primary concern of the people outside of the town center. There's, I suppose, one question, and that is that the green, whoops, where are we? Yeah, the green parcel that's right up at the very top there is the Sheep Ranch Indian Rancheria, and whether that, I can understand why that's a hard thing to categorize into your current things. we have no objection to it being resource management. And I do want to, or I was concerned this morning in that the one parcel that we show as commercial, the reason that was there, and again, this was a consensus thing from Sheep Ranch, that parcel is currently zoned rural commercial, and the citizens of Sheep Ranch, and reaching its concurrence, did not want to try to deprive the owner of any rights that he currently has or that he could pass on to people. And I confirmed with Peter this morning that even though the primary use of that parcel right now is residential with a printing business, separate building printing business, that if the current owner sold it and the new owner just wanted to be residential, he could do that without violating the community plan. So that's a long-winded way of saying thank you very much. We've totally concur with what you are proposing, and we very much appreciate the time you're spending on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all. I know you've been involved for a very long time. Thank you for sticking with it and getting it this far. Any other comments?
Nothing other than what he said about the town centers, which I'm sure you
Right.
picked that up already.
I'm Kelly Wooster. I do have some comments and questions. On 1.1, I'm not sure what this does, because the current densities, subdivision limitations, development restrictions, and potentials will be maintained until somebody tries to change them. And if somebody tries to change them, this provision can't prevent that change. Unless it's an effort or would have the effect of elevating a current zoning into some kind of a general plan land use designation. And the same thing is true with 1.2. Now, on 1.2, I think I understood from Tim Laddish that the existing commercially zoned parcel is the one shown in red on the map.
Yes.
The red designation, I think, on the legend is community center. And, I mean, I don't know how this happened, but that area in red was never commercial. The commercial part of Sheep Ranch, such as it was across Main Street to the north. That's where the blacksmith shop, the grocery store, the post office, and the saloon were. So there may be some confusion about what's zoned commercial and what is a community center. The vision statement says Sheep Ranch will serve as an increasingly rare living example of Calaveras County's past. When I was growing up in that town in the 1940s and 1950s, we did have a grocery store. It had gasoline out front. We had a blacksmith shop. We had a saloon. And that's just the commercial stuff. And earlier on, there were boarding houses, a couple of them. My grandmother ran one of them. And the effect of this, though, seems to be to restrict or prohibit all commercial activity in that town, which is not exactly consistent with its past. And it seems to me that if somebody wanted to come in and open up a small grocery store, like what we had when I was there, with gas or something like that, seems to me they ought to be able to do it. And so my suggestions would be to delete 1.1 and 1.2. I don't have any problem with the sheep. They've been there for years. They keep the fire danger down. That's a good thing. I think the town center issues, Mr. Laddish has already spoken to. If the map is incorrect, it ought to be fixed. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Laddish?
Well, once again, I would just stress that the members of the community, as a part of this process, all got together. This is not Tim Laddish off in a dark study somewhere deciding what's best for the town. I had proposals that were not accepted at the community meeting, and yet I feel obligated to stress that this is what the community decided it wants. And I think if we go to the individual things, this is what our policies are. And the point 1.1 is consistent with, and this is consistent with what the people of Sheep Ranch want. Yes, my wife's grandfather was the managing corporate officer of the Sheep Ranch gold mine. And Sheep Ranch was a very different place back then. And there were many saloons and several hotels. But as Sheep Ranch, I was going to say, as Sheep Ranch has developed, I'd say it's the reverse of that, whatever the word is, as undeveloped through the years. The people who have moved in and are the current residents of Sheep Ranch and the people who came to this meeting want to preserve what we have. And they're well aware that the former store was a store. It's currently used in part as a residential apartment. They did not want to encourage somebody to come in and open that store. That would bring people from outside the area into Sheep Ranch for commercial transactions and litter and crowding and traffic and, let's face it, some danger to the sheep. And so that's why we have both 1.1 and 1.2. We have drafted these so that when people come to our community, we can show them these policies and say, this is what the community wants. That's an example of that. When we have the architectural style, the community did not want to have a review committee and binding things from the county and stuff. We wanted just to be able to talk with people and say, we like things the way they are. We would appreciate it. This is the voice of the community that indicates to you that we would like to keep things as they are. So that is the only commercially zoned parcel in the town. It was zoned commercial back when the mine was possibly going to reopen, and I believe it was 1970, and the owner of that property at that point was going to make a lot of money by opening a pizza parlor for all the miners, because the mine was going to be open 24/7, et cetera. And as I understand it, that's when that was zoned commercial. It does have commercial activity on it now. Dan Souza has Souza Printing Company on that property. So that's why that is shown as commercial in this thing. So if there are no further questions, I think this is a reflection of what the community, as it exists during this process, wants for Sheep Ranch. And it isn't what existed in 1903 or, for that matter, in 1945.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak about Sheep Ranch? All right, if so, the commission, further discussion, comments on some of the issues that were raised?
So starting out with 1.2, maintain the non-commercial nature of all properties other than the existing commercially zoned parcel. So that is, Peter, the only commercial zoned property there, but yet you said it's not really commercial?
What Mr. Laddish says is correct. That is zoned rural commercial. It is the only commercially zoned parcel. There is a rural home business, you might call it, a printing shop that he runs out of accessory structure on the site that has his home on it. Across the street, as Commissioner Wooster pointed out, as Citizen Wooster pointed out, is the old historic store, gas bar, that kind of stuff. Initially, we've gone through several iterations of the maps. The whole core area, here was all shown, was all shown as being historic center. And the citizens of Sheep Ranch were opposed to that primarily because it had the potential for allowing multifamily housing, which they didn't want to see. The reality, because of the lack of public sewer, is very limited that multifamily housing could be developed, but it's possible that on some larger lots you could put a duplex or a triplex, something like that in there. And so the next iteration showed these two parcels, actually it showed that lot there as being the historic center and everything else as rural residential. Mr. Laddish pointed out that this is the commercially zoned parcel and it should remain commercial, which it is shown here. And we debated, for a while about keeping that as either commercial or as historic center. I basically said, it doesn't matter to me if the citizens don't want to see it, developed commercially, then, I'll go with them.
What's the current status on the hotel? Sheep Ranch.
The hotel is down here somewhere, right? I'm trying to remember where, I've only been to Sheep Ranch twice, so I'm not that familiar with the community. But it's further down the main street. I'm guessing it's being used as a residence.
It's privately owned, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think, it's not, it's not an ongoing concern of renting out rooms and
Yeah.
such.
Once or twice a year is all.
Yeah, I mean, that's just for, family, friends kind of thing, or,
So I'm just going to, when we worked on the general plan, I believe it was in our introductions and on our vision statements, was preserving our historical heritage. And by not preserving that historical property there, and we're turning it into rural residential, technically it could just be a pot farm. I mean, wouldn't we rather, protect our historical heritage? I'm just throwing it out there for thoughts.
I think just by the nature of, you're talking about its heritage as a commercial use, not heritage as the structures themselves. Is
I'm
that?
talking about, because he was talking about the historical zoning that was there. What did you call it?
Well,
You just referenced the historical heritage there.
The uses across the street.
Yeah,
There were saloons and grocery stores
right.
and gas
And
stations.
I'm not sure what else was, in town. I imagine there was quite a bit during its heyday.
So it's now all being used as
It's
residential?
all being used as residential. I was surprised to find that the store that was located here is no longer in operation. The building's still there. There are gas pumps outside, but they probably haven't pumped gas in decades.
What would be opposition to having the store back in an old building that was historically maintained? I don't,
No, I think
Well,
Mr.
I
Laddish
mean,
just
it's not
spoke to
my
that.
community.
Yeah, we
I'm
could
not
add-
the one that's gonna,
Right, and I think that what I heard Mr. Laddish say is that they don't want to be an attraction for people from the outside. If you offer retail, people will come by, they might buy gas, they might throw their papers on the highway, they might run over some sheep. It's a way for them to maintain the very low intensity of uses there, that they're not interested in any kind of commercial activity at all. Which is not strange, But, I mean, it's just different, but Sheep Ranch is different. So it's just the, the
I like
sentiment.
driving through Sheep Ranch.
Yeah, the sentiment of the community, it's like they don't want to be like everybody else. Most places are, like trying to get as many sales tax dollars as they can, and they're like, we don't care about that. Well, they're going to shop someplace else. And, and I don't live there either, and I do know that Mr. Laddish has been in the community planning process for the long haul, certainly as long as I was when, working with McCollum Hill. So I don't doubt that he represents the voice of the community, because he's been there from the get-go.
Okay, and then on the one that you're saying has a residence as well as a print shop,
That's the commercial area.
understand,
Yeah.
it's one parcel. And what is the zoning on that?
Rural commercial.
Rural commercial. And what could fall under a rural commercial zone?
Pretty much the same types of commercial uses you would be allowed in our C1 zone.
And I think
A store, gas station, I don't remember all the uses off the top of my head, but there are a number of commercial, pretty much any number of retail commercial type uses.
Right, well, the residence at some point could be converted to some other commercial use too. So, it could be entirely with no house and totally commercial.
I'm good. People are happy, I'm happy.
Yeah. Other comments regarding Sheep Ranch? And I'm fine, because, it's a different community, and
You don't have an opinion? I feel like I'm sitting between Ted and Ted here. You got to speak up.
it's his first day, cut him some slack.
I know, but I'm feeling like I need someone talking next to me.
It's,
Missy David.
I find I hate to use the word odd, but it's different than what we see usually when people are coming forward for their community. They want a majority, from what I understand, wanted to keep it as it is now. It's not working to preserve what was historically there. It's working to preserve what it has turned into without having the historical stuff so much. So I'm just trying to take that in. My personal opinion is that if a majority of the people want it that way, then we should go with what the majority wants.
How do we know that he's the majority? Because we had him and then we had Kelly.
That's taking his word for it.
Well,
here.
let me also say again, as I said before, is that when I became involved in the community plan update process, and there were a lot of meetings with all of the District 2 communities that were held by then sitting supervisor Steve Walensky, I saw Tim.
Well,
He was there.
I will say this.
So I do know that he has been very engaged in this community planning process from the very beginning.
I will say we are a county of great diversity.
Yes.
And this is just one more example. Let's do it.
Wait, Mr. Laddish, did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, I just wanted to point out
You'd
that-
need to come to the microphone.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
And my name is still Tim Laddish.
thank you.
Is that during this process, I did not specifically call Kelly Wooster, but I did try calling his brother to make sure that he had no problem. This was back when we had the broad area, all being part of the Sheep Ranch area, that if he had any problems with what was going on with the land use provisions for that, if he could call me, and I did not receive an answer. So, and Commissioner Wooster has not lived in Sheep Ranch, I don't think, at least since the 50s. So I think I have my finger on the pulse of the community, probably better. But thank you very much for respecting our maybe harebrained ideas, but it's...
No, it's not harebrained. I'm going to call it diversity.
But yes, diversity is a nice
Yeah.
word. But we love the store building, and the person that currently owns the store building has owned it for decades, and he keeps it up, and it's kind of like our Bodie, it's a state of arrested decay, so that, you know, and the pumps are pure dressing. He brought those back. The previous owner had to dig up the tanks and stuff, so the pumps are a historical reference, let's put it that way.
Thank you so much.
One issue that Mr. Rooster brought up regarding the language of 1.1 and 1.2, you know, a strict reading of this would actually prevent someone from applying or from us approving the general plan amendment, because a proposed amendment to the land use map would be inconsistent with these policies. The map essentially does what the community wanted in these policies. So if it's the intent of that, we're going to approve this and we want it to stay that way, then these policies are appropriate. If 10 years down the line, someone comes in and says, you know, I really think I should be able to consider putting a commercial development in here, and I want to go through the process of a general plan amendment and zone change, it would be challenging to find consistency with the general plan, even, you know, I know it's a general plan amendment, without somehow addressing these policies. So just keep that in mind as we're debating this.
May I?
Mr. Race, please.
I'm Peter Race, 5th District. It's really a pleasant experience when you see people. I mean, it's disappointing some folks. I want to thank that. It's good to know there's some good, reasonable, honorable people in this county. It's really nice. And boy, I can't find anything to improve it, that improve your life. It's really nice to have good people that know what they want, they appreciate what they have, and I'm glad that this board hopefully respect it and appreciate such a good people. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me ask you, Mr. Laddish, based upon Mr. Maurer's assessment of 1.1, 1.2, it would really preclude somebody in the future saying, I would like to get a general plan amendment and have this parcel changed from residential to the downtown or the community center, which would allow kind of a mixed use.
I think what we could do, and I'm trying to come up with language on the spot here, is, I mean, this is meant to be a policy of maintaining. I think if we can, and maybe Peter, you could come up with language better, I think it's important that these be in here. But if saying maintain means that's it forever, yes, and the cold dead hand of Tim Laddish is on Sheep Ranch forever and ever, that isn't our intention.
Right.
So
allowing some, I mean, having the intent in here, but having some
right
flexibility.
Well, that's what I'm trying to think now is.
What about if we move that up into the community vision?
Well, I think it's reflected in the community vision as it is, but I think if we can say until the general plan is amended in other respects or something of that sort, comma, maintain. Do that on both of those. Given the possibility of future amendments to the general plan or something like that.
But it also could be an individual property owner. It wouldn't have to be a
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
But as I understand, they would need to.
You would just
to change this, they have to amend the general plan.
Yeah, and you would preclude, well, even if what Peter's saying is that even if somebody went in and wanted to amend the general plan by getting a piece of property with, maybe this community center, mixed use kind of thing, it would be difficult for the planning department to find that request consistent with this community
Well,
plan.
that's why I'm trying to make
Yeah.
it consistent, so that in the future, if somebody does do that and makes a good case for it,
Yes.
and the
We
current...
wouldn't wanna
and then-
preclude
then
that.
the current citizens of Sheep Ranch say, I want to buy my
They
beer.
could have a chance to at least weigh
Yes.
in on it.
So that's why I'm trying to come up with language
Yeah.
where I can say, with the possibility of future amendments to the general plan, or something like, some sort of
Yeah.
phrase like that at the beginning of each of these.
And had it been the morning, we probably could come up with something
just-
like
it-
really sharp, but I
Well,
also,
I have a thought on this,
Okay.
because as he mentioned, it is in their community vision plan that they don't want commercialism, and they like it that way. So in their vision, they're making the statement of what their community wants. So do we really even need to have 1.2 in here? 1.1 is pretty consistent with the general plan already, Peter, regarding public water and sewer, correct?
Yes.
So 1.1 is already addressed in the general plan under those provisions, and 1.2 is being addressed under your vision statement. So even if you struck both of those, your statement about what your wishes are for your community still stand. The only difference is that if somebody wants to try and challenge, they have that right, and then you have the right to bring your entire community down here and say no during public hearings.
Yes, but it is such a strong, these are both
so,
so strong a part of, I mean, the vision does mention it, and it's a vision, but we need these elements, but I would welcome a change that would indicate that people can apply for an amendment to the
to a general plan, yeah.
So, recognizing the ability of people of future requests to amend the general plan, the community wishes to maintain, blah, 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 blah.
But then it doesn't become a policy anymore.
Well, it's a policy of the community, but I'm not sure.
I'm saying, but if you add the language that you're saying, that takes the statement of a policy out of it.
Well, perhaps we could work on some language. Do we have to solve this right
I hope
here?
not.
Huh?
I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we could.
Peter and I could work together, and he could bring
Something,
it to you.
would that, yeah, because I mean,
But I was trying to craft something right now, but it wasn't really, it was falling
Right.
flat on me.
So-
So maybe because we'll be bringing the whole package back for
Yes.
final amendment, final
Yes.
adoption. I'll work with Tim over the next 2 weeks, or next week, to come up with some modified
that would,
language.
that would be
Great.
my preference, is
Yeah.
to give them some time to
That's
work
fine
out
with
some
me.
language.
I would agree with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other comments on Sheep Ranch? No? All right. So, Tim, would you knock on the door and ask Mr. Wu? Thank you. All right, we are moving on to West Point. Thank you for bringing that up, Peter, because I think that there is, I mean, I don't think that's their intent, it's just to
Yeah.
preclude any change
Yeah, it is.
whatsoever
Yeah, it is.
into perpetuity.
Yes, it is.
No, I don't think so. I mean, because people change, generations change. You have
Well,
to
the worst case scenario is we approve it, and then someone sues us over the
Then it's the
language
inconsistency.
because you're inconsistent with that
Yeah.
policy, so.
No, I think that's a good,
Yeah.
that's a good catch. Okay.
Trying to protect the county.
Yeah. Okay, so West Point, any comments on West Point?
None from me.
Does it have the same map, coterminous stuff?
We don't have a policy that refers to the town center, so we don't need that.
Okay. Anybody? Anyone in the, with us this afternoon have any comments about West Point?
Theirs is generic.
Wow, okay.
Straightforward and
All right.
they want to upgrade.
Wilseyville?
No comments from me.
All right, does have references to the town center,
town
so it would
center,
need the, no? Members with us this afternoon in the audience? Wilseyville? Okay. The W's sailed through. So, I guess we're done with the community plan element now, and then we'll be coming back with,
So the two items I'm bringing back, other than the amendments, would be the policies for Sheep Ranch 1.1 and 1.2, and the land use map for San Andreas. So I'll bring those back at our next meeting 2 weeks from today.
okay, so we're not meeting next week.
Not meeting next week.
That's good.
I hope to be able to start, I'm now going through and cataloging all of the land use map requests. There are a lot of them. I'm not sure I'll have them all ready to go in a week, in order to give the packet to you a week from now, but I'm going to try. There are also other map changes that I've noticed as I'm working on the plan that I want to amend, and in conversations I've had with individuals throughout that just makes sense. And so that's my next task is to finalize amendments to the land use map. So we'll have a draft number 4 out, as well as then a spreadsheet with all of the requests. What I hope to get, and I don't know if it's possible just physically with the system we have, is our ability to connect to our GIS system. So we can zoom in on a specific parcel, we can look up the zoning. I've done that, it's all going to be on a spreadsheet, but it's so much easier to see it on the map. And we can just click
See
to
surrounding
what's
uses.
proposed, what's around it, all, those kind of things. It would be so much easier. This has not worked as well as I had hoped it would. Trying to scroll back and forth,
Right.
it's just not
Right.
as functional. So that's would be the next step in the process. Getting all that together in a week is going to be a challenge, but I will try to rise to it. And if not, we'll finish up the community plan discussion. Hopefully we'll have some other regular agenda items for next week. And then if I'm not able to get the rest of the land use map issues put together for a package for you, then we'll start that in August.
Okay, thank you. There was quite a bit of discussion about the Copper and Valley Springs community plan that we said we would talk about.
Yes. For Valley Springs, it seems to me that if the people who were sponsoring what were, as I understand it, 2 competing plans are getting together and are compromising, at the point where they can bring to the planning department a plan that they're able to compromise and put together themselves, I don't see any reason why the commission shouldn't take that up. On Copperopolis, I'm fairly sure the people who worked on that plan thought it was complete when they turned it in. I think Dave Haley said that was in 2008. I know the process was reopened, I think in 2010, I could be wrong on that, for reasons that were not apparent to me at the time. It is true that Oak Canyon, that was slated for development, is probably not going to happen now, but that was never in the Copperopolis Community Plan area to begin with. So that doesn't change anything, which Mr. Haley also pointed out. So if there's a controversy about Copperopolis, I don't know what it is. And I'd like to know what it is. But there was a lot of work done on that
Yeah.
over several years.
I know there's a lot of, I've got stacks of paperwork on Copperopolis and a lot of work done over the years. My perception, whether it's right or not, based on the community meeting that we had when we released the draft general plan, probably the most well-attended meeting we had was in Copperopolis, and the community was split down the middle as far as we want growth, we want to keep it the way it is. And so I just sort of felt that that trying to resolve those issues quickly so that we can move on with the map and get this up to the board and finish the process was going to delay my ability to complete the general plan in the time frame that the board wanted to see. I know that, there probably was some, I know there was a lot of work that was done previously. And I just don't see resolving the growth, no growth issues in Copperopolis as being a fairly quick solution. And I will go with the board's direction on this, is not to include Copperopolis at this point in time.
The only thing I would say to that would be that the growth, no growth part comes up for the most part on the map. The text, I'm not sure there's any controversy about. And the map can be, that can be taken care of. It's going to have to be done.
We have to adjust it anyway.
Well, the map will be taken
Yeah.
care of, whether it's a community plan or not. The map will be.
That's right.
That's coming up in a couple of weeks, the
And
map.
so maybe if we get the map issues settled around Copperopolis, there may not be much in the way of controversy of no growth versus no growth, because that's where the rubber meets the road
Right.
on that issue. And then maybe it could be included. Valley Springs, I don't know what to say other than what I already said.
Well, we're not,
Oh, go ahead.
oh, no, you go, sorry.
I personally would like to reflect what Mr. Wooster just put forward. I think it would be a good idea to have, I understand the conflict, but it would be a good idea to have a complete general plan done when we submitted it, in my mind. That way we go through the EIR process on everything one time. And also, I would like to be able to see the Valley Springs also. If they can find compromise, then maybe we should be able to look at it and move forward on it.
I get to be different. I have a real issue because and I asked a lot of questions earlier on in the day, and the reason I was asking those questions is because, unfortunately, I felt like a recipient of my community plan was put together by a select group. And I don't ever want to see that happen in this county again. I have so much respect for the way it was done in District 2, because it was truly a community coming together and putting their plans together, and that's what the community wanted. And when I look at the Valley Springs plan, we have 2 different citizens groups working on it. I don't hear, and I didn't hear, and what I kept listening for was somebody to say the community worked on it. I never heard that when I talked to them this morning. All I heard is this group and that group, and then I specifically asked. I don't think individual groups should have an entire say for an entire community. If people don't show up to the community meetings, that's the loss. But I think that a community works on a community plan, not 2 separate groups. If they brought something forward, these 2 groups, and it pretty much, it looks good and it could be worked out, I'm not saying that I would be opposed to looking at it and saying, hey, you guys are all in agreement, you're all here, and the community has a chance to come and say absolutely not, or yes, I will. But I don't think it's a community plan. I think it's 2 groups putting plans together. On Copperopolis, I don't have too much of an opinion on that. Like you said, they've done a lot of work on it. The whole face of the community of Copperopolis has changed, how much of it is still valuable. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. 3? Does that mean it's 2 and 2 and now it's all on Fawn?
I don't know, I think something Kelly said about, we are going to be looking at the maps. And the maps are that's where the people are interested. That's where the investment is. That's where the personal stake is. And it may make sense because I'm concerned about the board did provide direction on the community plans that would be included at the general plan update. So that they gave their direction. Planning staff is oversubscribed now between what we're doing and the new green business that we're in. So it could be that as we work through the maps in these communities, that a lot of these issues are resolved, and then at that point, it may be easier to go back and at least you have an idea about, and I don't know that this is the best way to do it, but that's really going to inform a lot of the controversy and the policies that would be included in a community plan. Just a thought. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have,
I'm going to respect the supervisors. I think that's where,
and I appreciate, that you want one. I mean, I think it's an important, it's important to have a community's identity, captured in the general plan so that it reflects the vision of the people that live there. And I wish that, I'm just glad we've got some of them because we didn't have any of them for a while. There were going to be no community plans, so I'm grateful for what we've been able to accomplish. But I don't want to just say we're this far and jeopardize it by dividing our resources now to include the rest of them, at least at this point. I do agree that we need to, and I think it should be certainly a goal. But I think we should stay focused on the path that we're on right now, and I do think through the map, the general plan map, that's the policies and the text and the direction could be more easily articulated, I think, after that, which we'll know in a couple of weeks when we start reviewing those maps.
I'm one of the districts whose plans aren't being included, so, I think it's just a matter of we need to make it happen. We got to put it together. We're going to have to make it happen at some point. And waiting 20 years is no longer options.
Right.
And, I don't think that green should slow us down. Our county doesn't come to a screeching halt. It did
No, I
when we
agree.
had a fire, and I don't want
Right.
to see it happen a second time. So I want to see us keep moving.
Yeah.
Agreed on moving. We do need to get this done.
So I don't think, including adding Valley Springs and/or Copperopolis would be necessarily inconsistent with the board's direction. I probably have said several times, if there's a way that I can add other ones in, I will. It will delay me getting to the rest of the land use maps. There's no question about it. Just, time, for the past 2 weeks now, I've been working on the rest of the county land use maps. And prior to that, I was working for 2 months on the community plans. So putting more time on the community plans will mean I'm putting aside the rest of the land use maps. However, a lot could be done to provide community acceptance of our planning process by, the whole issue of the District 2 plans was that, they were encouraged to be involved in this by their supervisor back in the beginning. They felt betrayed by the county, and they felt that the entire general plan was invalid because their community plans were not included. Now I hope that we will have acceptance of the, most of the general plan because those communities are now included as a part of that. I think the same benefit could accrue by including as many other communities as possible. It's a balance between how much time can I spend on those community plans and get the whole thing done in the timely manner that the board wants to see.
So I guess a question would be, is either Copperopolis or Valley Springs, do they have a community plan that they could say, okay, here it is, Peter, format it for us, basically like the other communities did. It's like, here you go. Because that's essentially I think that's how you determine which ones are going in and which ones aren't.
Right.
So, if there were the point that said, yeah, okay, here you go, just, give us a page and a half and a map, basically. That's the question. If that were the case, if it were that close.
If that were the case, I think I could do it.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'll.
And I'd be happy to meet with representatives of both communities early next week.
Right. But meeting with them to just, kind of go through some of the key things, but not meeting with them to resolve issues or disputes or, I guess there's is it meetings or meeting, it's.
Right.
So can you guys what do you? Yes, would you?
I want to talk about copper.
Okay, well, I'll talk about copper then. Let's talk about copper, and like, are you guys in that place where you've got something and you could just hand it off to Peter?
Peter
State,
already...
please.
Oh, Vicki Mills.
Thank you, Vicki.
Asked Peter to send us what he had on Copperopolis community plans. We have gone over what he sent us, and what basically there is just one community plan that Peter has. He sent us 2 documents, but the first document is also included in the community plan. So really, there's only one document, and Peter has it.
So you're saying there's one Copperopolis community plan?
Yes.
That you're saying that Peter could go, oh, all right, I'm just going
Yes,
to
he has the draft community plan that Kelly was referring to. He has it, because he sent it to me. And the other document that he sent us that was done prior to the community plan.
That's already, you're saying, absorbed in the newer one.
It's the Appendix A of the newer plan.
And does it also include the land use map? And
I did not see a land use map in it when I was going through it, but I may have missed it because I get whipped.
so that wasn't part of the community discussions about appropriate
It
land
was,
uses?
I did not see it as part of the, is it in there, Kelly?
There was a map.
Well, then it's there.
Now, whether
Because-
it was in the package that went to the board, I don't know, because I wasn't in the process, but I do know there was a map, because I've seen it.
Okay.
I don't know that it ever went to the board. I mean, it's been a draft
I was gonna say,
product.
yeah.
That's been, members of the community working with some staff before I got here, obviously.
Yeah. But what Kelly, Peter has the draft of what Kelly was talking about, and it is just one document, because the prior document is included in Appendix A. Okay?
All right, thank you. Sure.
Peter Ray's 5th District, and I believe also it mentioned, and I don't know if Peter has a copy of it, but there was in District 1 that was offered by the Caltrans sponsored organization was A, B, and C. When people took a look at it, A, B, and C, they went for D. And I don't know if Peter has a copy of it, but when elected official decided to go against it, the elected official is not here anymore, but people that wanted D.
I'm sorry, what community are you talking about,
He's
ABC?
talking
District
about
1.
the general plan, he's not...
Valley
he's not-
Spring, general plan,
Oh, the general plan.
yes,
Yeah, we're talking-
in there. But when you talk about zoning,
Well, we're not talking about zoning, but,
well, you talk about areas that you're going to be making decisions on. Well, let's put it
we're
this
talking
way.
about Valley Springs or Copperopolis. That's what we're focused on.
No, she was talking about, you asked about the 2 issues on District 1, which is Valley Spring area, and she mentioned Copperopolis.
So are you
You asked-
referring to Copperopolis or Valley Springs?
I'm talking about District 1, which is Valley Spring,
Okay,
okay?
thank
A, B, and C, and there was another one that's submitted by the rest of the people, D. And so, please consider that, so it doesn't have to delay this great work that you folks doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joyce Tekel again. Lisa, I just wanted to share with you, if you'll go to the myvalleysprings.com website, we have videos of the meetings that are associated with our community plan. There were hundreds of people that attended it. And you don't need to take my word for it. It's all in the video. Thank you.
And I was at the meetings also, by the way.
So Joyce or Colleen, is there a Valley Springs community plan that you could give Peter?
Yes, there is. Well, a lot of you made comments about the map and the boundaries being the issues of controversy, and I would agree with that. And because the county has gone through now, it will be 4 iterations of the land use map, what originally was controversial has actually been solved. So the maps are not, we will see when the land use map comes forward. He probably knows more than me about comments on the maps. But what is now before us, even in draft 3, is nothing like what was in either community plan. It's evolved. And it's not far away from where we would see that would be a place where we could go, and I don't know about the other community plan members, whether they would think that too, but to me, it's already reached a compromise. We've already reached that compromise in the map, which we're fine living with that. So we're not interested in arguing about a map. We're just talking about the text, the policies and the goals of the community.
So have the two groups gotten
Yeah.
together and come up with one? Or do we still have two?
The two groups haven't gotten together, but people have taken the policies from both plans, the ones that are consistent with each other and consistent with the general plan. So we've pulled out policies from both plans.
Mm-hmm.
So we've actually, just taken both plans and put them together. It's not in a final, it's in a, where you can see this policy's from this plan, this is from this, and they go together. They don't conflict with each other.
So who put them together?
We've been working on that. A group
Who's-
of us has been working
who's
on
we?
it.
My Valley
The
Springs?
coalition and My Valley Springs.
Okay.
Various people have been
Okay.
working on this, trying to get something that's balanced with both plans and just put them together. So, it hasn't been brought to the public, no, because we haven't gotten any okay from anybody to do this, but we've brought the idea forward to the planning department. We brought it forward to a supervisor candidate. They think it's a good idea. They think, let's try that. So we've got it almost ready to go. We're about 2/3 of the way through. We could have it done by next week. And there were lots of people at the community meetings. It wasn't our group doing it. There were consultants hired. The county was part of it. Public Works was part of it. There were hundreds of people at the community
I guess,
meetings.
okay, so that's excellent. My concern was, all you guys were talking about earlier is two different groups. And
You asked us what two groups put them together.
I
and
did,
tried to
because that's
give
what
a
you guys kept
background.
referencing, and
But
that's why I was
didn't understand that
asking
you
that.
thought it was a small group. It wasn't a small group that ran the meetings. We had huge public meetings.
So in order to bring these two versions together and make one, how much of a delay is that going to cause our general plan? Because obviously, he's not going to be able to finish the land use maps.
I'm saying the land use maps aren't a problem. We don't see any holdup in the land use maps. And we have text that, I don't know how long it'll take planning to go through what we have in the text, but obviously they'll have to go through, I think we have about 6 or 8 pages, so they would need to condense it. And, there's duplicate policies, because one is from one plan and one's from another, but we were trying to be very balanced and fair and include both, so somebody has to just take like those two policies that say similar things but with different words and put them into one plan, which we don't want to do that for the other plan. We want somebody...
You wanted
And
some
from-
neutral
a
party to
neutral
show
person
how similar these are.
to actually merge them. We want some neutral person to merge them, but we've already put them together in
Right.
a form.
Right.
There's a
Right.
lot of common ground. There's a lot of things that people actually agreed on that they didn't know they agreed on.
Right.
That's the problem.
Right,
They don't know what they
right.
agreed to.
Yeah, they agreed on a lot more than they thought. So
Yeah.
when you start pulling the things out, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've got something pretty much ready to go.
All right, thank you.
I would say that adding these two community plans would probably add a month or more to the process. Now, a month in the time frame of, 8 years so far and a year and a half more to go, is it time well spent? Hard to say. If it's as simple as has been suggested, then I'd say yes. I'm not sure it's going to be quite so clean, especially just what I've heard from different community meetings and different positions that the community has. But
I
I'm
know-
willing to try it, other than the fact that the board has said, no, this is what we're doing.
That's
So
my
that's
specific
the concern I have. Again, I think the board didn't say, if there, as I recall from now over a year ago, I said, these are the ones I definitely could do. And it's possible that we might, but I would just soon not because it is going to delay the process. And that's been my statement pretty much throughout the whole time. And I think the board would agree that if we could include them without a significant delay, we should do it. I just don't know how much of a delay it's going to cause. And maybe we give it a try, and if we realize the room is packed with opposing sides, we say, oh, sorry, no, stop, put it aside. And that may be the best solution.
I think that your next order of business ought to be the maps, not Copper, not Valley Springs, just as you have planned. I think we ought to get through those maps. And I think then we should take a look and see if controversies have shaken themselves out regarding Copper. Apparently there aren't any with Valley Springs. And if it looks like it's prudent and it won't take much time, then take up Copper and Valley Springs, otherwise don't.
Well, the reality is that, I've got a couple weeks worth of work to do on the map still, and then we'll get into the hearing process, and you're going to have a long set of lengthy hearings. Every property owner who's dissatisfied with what the map says is going to be in here, making their pitch for what they want. And so I won't have a lot of work to do on the general plan at that point in time. Plenty of other things to do, but not on the general plan. So I could be working on text at that point in time so that at the end of the land use map process or somewhere during the land use map process, we could bring the text sections of those maps back.
And perhaps we could start reviewing the maps in the Copperopolis and Valley Springs area so we could vet those first. That might help inform if there, once we got that and you had some time while we were doing the other areas that
Well,
would...
it sort of makes sense to do it region-wide, in areas and communities, so that the people that are concerned about that all show up at one time. So
Gotcha, but we could start with those districts.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if it were easy, I would, and there was consensus from the community that I would, support doing that. I agree with Kelly. It's like starting with the, let's focus on the maps. Let's kind of get that process started, giving you guys time to, to finish up what you need to do in merging the reports, and let's just, if it is kind of smooth, and I think we should try and slip them in. That would be my suggestion.
I would agree with that. That would give them time to get all their ducks in a row, per se. Also, maybe another week or whatever it would take for them to actually get in both groups together to say they have come to a consensus on what they would like to introduce.
And perhaps with the knowledge of a little window that might actually spur on some, some more of the heavy lifting on the community's part to put things together, since there's an opportunity maybe for them, to become included, to be included in the update at this point.
Okay. I think I can live with that.
Would we need to go back to the supervisors and get direction to be doing work on this and add it?
I don't think so. And that's why I'm trying to say that I think that they were willing to say, no, we're not going to do it, but I think they'd also be accepting of, we were able to include these without a significant delay.
Some consensus there sound good? Yeah?
Yes.
Maps.
Yeah.
Bring them on.
So then moving on, no study session is our public comment period. Is there anybody that would like to address the Planning Commission on an item not on our agenda today? No? All right, so then I guess I just want to say thank you for all the hard work. It's interesting that we got through all these community plans. It's only 2:15, and it's like, for being such a hotbed of controversy and in and out and sideways, and I think a lot of that is attributable to you, Peter, for massaging and getting those community plans in a consistent format and holding true to what the community members wanted. and valued in each of those plans. I mean, it couldn't have been easy. As we know, there's a lot of diversity in our community, so just wanted to thank you, and you guys as well for all your hard work, too.
And I will second that. Thank
Yeah.
you for your staff and your
Yeah.
work. That's appreciated.
Yeah. So with that, any other comments?
No.
And welcome again.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone. It's definitely a learning curve for me,
It's been for all of us, too.
stepping up, and I do appreciate the time that, Peter gave to me about a week ago to meet with him, and, and everything moving forward, and I hope it continues to move like it did today, because it seems like it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. We'll attribute that to you.
Are you asking for more activity?
No, I'm not.
Yeah. So with that, we're adjourned. Thank you very much. We'll see
Well, I
you.
wanted to give a brief report.
Oh, sorry.
Number 8. And I just want to give you an update of where we are with the cannabis issue. The registration process closed technically on June 30th, but we had such a lineup of people, we just took in their applications and then processed them, met with them the following week to make sure that we had everything we needed. In the end, we had 942 registration applications, about 4 times what we thought we were going to get. So we're pretty slammed. I think it was 730 some were commercial cultivation applications. We are now starting the review process, coordinating with the Sheriff's Office, Code Enforcement, Environmental Management, Public Works, the state, to review all of those to see which ones actually qualify and which ones won't qualify. We're finding a lot of inconsistencies in some applications, so there will be a lot of work to do coming up. I've been able to hire 5 extra help staff to begin with, and the board has authorized other extra help for other departments, and the CAO will be going back to the board with additional help. We did take in $3.7 million in registration fees, which we'll use for the program. The board on Tuesday approved putting a tax measure on the ballot. We'll see what the voters say about that. That could bring in some significant amount of money that would go directly to the general fund, which does not have to be earmarked specifically for the registration process and review, because the fees are restricted to that use. They also put on the ballot the initiative that was sort of a melding of the proposed permanent ordinance that was crafted back in February, as well as the urgency ordinance with some other change. We'll see what that happens with the board. We are beginning the EIR process on the permanent ordinance, the county drafted permanent ordinance, and there is a scoping session next Wednesday night here from 6 to 8. We've already sent out the notice of preparation and have comments back from agencies, but this is a public scoping comment opportunity on the ordinance itself. We probably will be having several appeals coming to you. Our appeal ordinance allows any decision made by the planning director or my staff to be appealed to the planning commission.
On an application?
We have rejected a number of applications because they were inconsistent with our requirements, and we've already received several appeal letters. So expect that in the future. Get ready. And I think that's probably it as far as planning director's reports.
All righty. So, one last question. How was your vacation?
It rained, but it was so wonderful.
Good.
Did you bring some back?
Apparently not.
Yeah, we used it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next meeting is when?
2 weeks from,
2 weeks from today,
Yeah.
regular scheduled meeting.
right. All right.
And my apologies for not getting the packet out. We were so busy trying to help by putting them all together, but then we never got it to the mailbox.
That's all right.
I got mine.
All right,
Just
well,
because yours electronically. Magic.
we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My understanding